So this is our Design as Catalyst class here at Washington University in St. Louis. And today we are having a conversation with Jessica Bellamy, who just joined in.
Hey.
Yes. Hello, Jessica. How are
Hey, how are
you?
you all? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear and see you.
Perfect. Great. Do you want me to dive in or?
Yeah, so essentially we wanted to have the students be introduced to you and your work and your journey, and then if you could share a bit of that, we'll also ask you some questions about perhaps some of the experiences that you've had along that journey. Does that work?
Absolutely. Yeah, that definitely works. Okay.
Sweet.
I'm going to put up a couple of slides just to start. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see it? Okay, great.
Yes.
So I make information graphics. The way that I kind of got into focusing on that specific design set was mainly because I was definitely one of those students that would write really long, well thought out papers and then thought, well, no one's ever going to read this. And so when I was taking design courses, I would often turn some of my papers into infographics. And later on, after I had graduated, worked in research for a bit, but was still very active in my community here in Louisville, Kentucky, as a community organizer, I ended up creating an agency called GRIDS, the Grassroots Information Design Studio. And this agency was really created and inspired by the work I was doing with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, which is a statewide community organizing organization that has multi platforms. Just depends what city you're in, what they champion. And as far as Jefferson County is concerned, which is where Louisville's located, we were doing a lot of organizing work around a community that's predominantly Black. There was a lot of gentrification that was beginning to happen, and no one was asking current residents what they would like to see. We ended up knocking on doors, taking a survey, vision survey specifically. It was like a survey that was comprised of like 55 different questions. We ended up getting 140 surveys collected before we started designing the actual report. But once we got in the thick of it, we realized that, okay, this is kind of the same situation that I had in college. How are we going to get people to read this? And so I took it upon myself. I said, okay, I'll take a lot of the numbers and I'll just make as many infographics as I can for us to put in the report. And when we released it, it was a huge success. And it wasn't until a public forum where I literally watched someone armed with the report completely trump what a council member was saying that I realized the value of making infographics specifically to help mobilize numbers and to actually help people see change. Because once people have access to the data, it's really hard to argue against them, and it helps our local government start prioritizing more efficiently, really, because everybody knows government is only driven by concerns. So if we can make as many specific requests as well designed as we can, yeah, more change will happen. Anyway, so I've had grids for about 3 years now. I'm currently doing a residency with Adobe, which, if any of you are interested in becoming Adobe Creative Resident, the application is out right now, and I can take questions on that during Q&A. But yeah, there's 6 of us right now, 2 of 4 in the U.S. My specific work over the last year has focused on doing graphic ally hackathons and making motion graphics. So I wanted to. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Hello?
It's breaking up just a little bit with the audio, but we can
Oh,
still
okay.
see everything.
Oh, okay. You can see everything, but my sound is breaking up. I'll slow down and tell me if I need to repeat, okay? Um, so first, the hackathons. So I've been going around the country collaborating with nonprofits and creatives to help them create information graphics. So I start off the process by working with the nonprofit directly to come up with a communication strategy, and then the creatives literally make infographics. My whole session is really comprised around telling people not only ways that they can build conscious and responsible principles into their work and data equity, but also I teach people how to actually compose information graphics. And these sessions are anywhere between 90 minutes to 4 hours. And I've been to several different places. I'm about to do my 10th one at Yale this month. As far as my motion graphics are concerned, I started off by creating this living and breathing infographic, which I call Bubble. Oop, is it going to load? There we go. So Bubble was meant to be like a presentation aid that could be pre-programmed for organizers or teachers or anyone to use. I just would need to create the settings and then I could release them out for free. When I first started making Bubble, I was using it as a way to talk about what are different ways that people can make progress around specific successful social change initiatives, like fighting urban decay in neighborhoods, things like that. But also, while I was doing this process of developing Bubble, I started a kind of side project that was really more motivated by my personal interests, and it's called Designing from the Margins. Designing from the Margins is an Instagram series. It's also available on YouTube that focuses on the intersection between people of color and design. The way that I release it onto Instagram, if you follow hashtag DFTM Monday, is essentially there's a video where I talk about a concept and then I create some supplementary content that also goes with that theme. Here's some examples of some of the supplementary content from when I focused on Martin Luther King during his birthday celebration week. Yeah. So this is just one about the way that we've lost the actual contents of his story by the way that he's kind of been co-opted by media to be like this Unitarian of peace that we've always loved, and that's not really a true story. And then I did this segment, which is about the intersection of Star Trek and the civil rights movement, because MLK had a big component in keeping Uhura, which was one of the first positive Black characters on television during the time, and so forth and so on. And I also, during my residency, over the last like 3-4 months, I created this thing called the infographic wheel. It's about 10 by 10 inches. It's handheld, and it's a design tool that you can use. It's like a color wheel to help you pick a layout for your data, like an infographic layout. Right now, it's still in the testing phase. So if anybody's interested, you can go on my website and make a request to receive one for free and give me feedback. It's a pretty simple process, and you get something fun and free out of it. Yeah. This is what my website looks like. It's just www.jessicabellamy.design. And you can follow me on social media if you'd like. But that's just a general overview. There's so many things I'm excited to talk about. Like, I have a lot of different points of interest, and I just want to hang out with y'all for a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare my slides.
Sweet deal. Thank you so much, Jessica.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, was that helpful, informative at all? Sweet. A lot of head nods. Yes, knock it out the park.
I love head nods.
So I'm going to turn it over to the students to see questions or any like connection to any of the things that you shared. Anybody? Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, Rachel.
My question is, when you're creating infographics, because you're like funneling all this data into like specific points and you can kind of like shape it to how you want, how do you decide like the viewpoint that you want the person to share with you, and how do you like put into account what others like how do you funnel what you want people to see, kind of, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that definitely hits the nodes of like I have like 6 principles of conscious and responsible design that I constantly check myself on, which has to do with making sure that the message that I'm using is led by the people that are most affected by that issue, like because they're the subject matter experts, they're the ones who know root causes, realistic solutions. They are the people that give the validation if it has the work, if it actually works well, and they're the people that have the authority to help spread out the campaign and actually build it into a network to where it has more longevity. Um, uh, I also think about whether or not I'm portraying people authentically in the way that they would like to be portrayed. I try to be mindful and sensitive in my portraiture of folks. Like if I'm doing an information graphic on families affected by incarceration, I'm going to do my best to make sure I'm not criminalizing parents or children, things like that. If I'm doing an information graphic on with the goal of trying to help moms quit smoking, like pregnant mothers quit smoking, I'm not going to demonize that mother. That would be incredibly wrong. Mindful and sensitive portraiture. What else do I focus on? Disaggregating data. You don't want to generalize people and whole cultural bodies just by a data point. The most common data point that overgeneralizes people is when people say blah 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 percent of Asians, when Asia is a huge continent and so diverse and so forth and so on. So I try to disaggregate data as much as I can, because if people can't see themselves in the data point, then that's not a data point you should use. I try to make sure I narrate data points so that I'm not leaving everything up to selective perception, which is just where people have the tendency to read situations through their own personal frame of reference, which can be good or bad. My favorite example of talking about selective perception is by talking about All in the Family. Who's heard of All in the Family? It's like an old TV show. It's what Family Guy is actually based off of. And it's a show that was created by 2 guys who are Jewish that wanted to create this satire about a homophobic, anti Semitic, racist, fat, lazy white dude, essentially. And so when they put this out there, it was a widely popular show, and but half the audience got that it was satire and we're supposed to laugh at this person, this bigoted person, but the other half was like, this dude thinks exactly how I feel, this is a great show. So making sure that I narrate data points that I use so that I don't just leave it up to the listener to just kind of figure it out or make their own assumptions. I also think it's really important to be more advocacy facing when I do infographics rather than just making it objective. Main reason is because uh, when you make things more objective, you are focusing on facts, but you're using more passive language. If I'm trying to call people to action and really help them feel like emotional appeal about it, or put a bug in their bottom, then I definitely need to be more assertive in my language and more direct in my intention. That was a really long answer. But yeah.
No, that was great. You have a lot of people in here writing and typing, so that was awesome.
Thanks. Y'all should do a Graphic Alley hackathon. I talk about all of these things.
That could be cool. Maybe we'll have to bring you back again or something.
I would love to.
Any does anyone else have a question for Jessica? Yeah, Jane.
So my question is, for the Instagram story, what kind of inspired you to create motion graphics, infographics, and then putting it out on a public space?
Wow. I don't know how many people are fans of the really niche news outlets that go on social media, like Mike, Attention, AJ Plus, all of those things. You see them in your Facebook feed. I love those. I grew up in a household that always had MSNBC or CNN on, and those can get pretty boring, as well as not necessarily have the sort of like advocacy facing tone that I was talking about, right? And so because I realized like I really love that kind of niche news market that's really meant for our generation, that was a new way that I could start activating a lot of the data that I use. Because being a person that focuses in communication design, like if this is what I consume, why would I assume that anyone else wouldn't be as interested? And maybe this is a new pilot for me to mobilize initiatives. Yeah.
Sweet deal. Keep them coming. Yeah, Laura.
What's your process for like collecting data, and also like if you're kind of pulling things together from different sources or making multiple infographics that are meant to be together, how do you kind of make them kind of fit together in a cohesive way?
Yeah, so that's got, okay, two parts. Like one is kind of more about the brand identity. I feel like when you're talking about making them fit together, because you can use visual cues, like the way that you design it, your color scheme, the shapes you use, so forth and so on, to make it all look like as part of the same visual family. As far as gathering data, if I'm doing client work, it always begins with the resources that client gives me, whether it's nonprofit or community group. Sometimes I go off and find additional resources, but the conversation of how that's relayed is just something that happens naturally between the folks that I'm collaborating with, which generally includes someone who's most affected by that issue. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question fully? I think I did. I don't know.
Ashley.
Oh, it's the exact same question.
Oh, sweet deal. Anything else? Yeah, Maddie.
Data can be intimidating to a lot of different people, and I'm like, as a designer, how did you become more comfortable with sorting through these large amounts of data that you get from nonprofits and other groups, where like the people who are compiling it are like maybe like Excel pros, or they're not really thinking about the usability of this data, and how have you become more comfortable with making sense of it?
That took a lot of time. I do think that in some ways I have ADHD, which makes me, I feel like a better designer, because I have to simplify so much to keep my attention, but also kind of keep it fast enough pace for my energy level. But as far as like all of the data, I guess you just have to, for lack of a better phrase, which I've heard someone say this before, you have to fall in love with data mining, like seeing so much content and diving deeper. Like let's say someone gives you a report and the report is literally 200 pages long, right? And you both can go through it together, separately, highlight things that are points of interest based around like whatever your main goal is, like your action items that you want to achieve. But once you start collecting those together, you can start grouping them based on like commonality, the closest it gets to that point. But also you're thinking about, what is the narrative flow of this? Like at what point do people enter this story that I'm trying to talk about? So you have to get comfortable with just having a lot of moving parts. Take breaks when you need it, hydrate, take a nap. Like, but I do feel like, especially with doing these Graphic Ally hackathons, when I ask nonprofits what they need, as far as like what type of infographics they could get created and what type of data they have, the conversation starts out with, well, here are the data points that we use for our reports to get funding. And then I'm like, oh, well, these are all just numbers. Well, let's also talk about qualitative data. Like, do you have any impact statements? And those testimonies and that additional content, that's usually the well that's never been sorted through, which is kind of fun and enticing, I guess, in some weird way. But yeah, finding connections between stories and finding how one thing supports another. Yeah, I guess you just get used to it. You practice enough and you get better, you get quicker. it's like writing a paper. Like no one in this room was good at writing papers when we first started, right? And you had to learn the format, the body, the conclusion, all that stuff. And then of course the difference between MLA and APA. Like there's so much content and so much work and practice that goes into being good at anything. So don't be worried if you tried to make an information graphic before and got overwhelmed and just said, okay, now I'm just making a poster. It's totally cool. Like, no, I'm not judging anyone because it does take time. Like I said, I'm about to turn 30. So I probably did my first infographic when I was maybe 20, 21. So just put it in context.
Big deal. Any others? Eva.
How do you determine who is you? How do you determine who your data is for, or like who's going to view your data and like cater it to whoever's seeing it? So, like,
well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Like if it's multiple people, like how do you like consolidate that? I guess.
I always recommend that if the target audience number one should never be everybody. Filling down the target audience is probably the hardest thing that people in my workshops have tried to do, which I've been trying to think of a tool to help folks hone in better, because depending on what you want folks to do, like which usually you would go in the direction of what's going to have the greatest impact. So let's say you're focusing on I did a hackathon at UCLA a week ago, and one person's project was around teens who abuse drugs, right? So are you making an explainer with infographics for those teens? Is that going to have the greatest impact? Are you making it for their parents so they can be aware of the signs and what treatment options are? Are you making it for school systems? Like, where do you think you have the best opportunity to intervene and change that issue to the better? And once you pick that spot, then you can have an idea of your target audience. Because if you focus on parents, that's going to look different than if you focus on school district. That's going to look different if you focus on teens. Like the media vehicle even changes, whether or not it's an explainer or if it's something that goes on social media. But yeah, you got to kind of think of it in that way. Like, where's the point where I can truly intervene and make the greatest change? Is that helpful? Oh, and I also have like a list of 5 motivators. So if you figure out what your target audience is, like my 5 motivators are like whether or not you choose to focus on like emotional appeal with your data, whether or not you choose to think about economics, like how money is affected, focus around authoritative figure that may be respected, focus around popularity or consensus, which just is like how many people are already involved and engaged, because sometimes that motivates people to action. And what was the 5th one? Ooh, I should have had my slides ready. Y'all tested me.
Hey, Jessica.
But you get the idea.
Could you repeat some of those first ones? Mainly because the sound broke right at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my list of 5 motivators that you can use like to focus your data. The first one is I call narrative, which is about emotional appeal. The second one is economic. How is money affected? The third one is popularity and consensus, which is how many people are involved, how many are already engaged. The fourth one is immediate action. Is this a hot button issue? Does it need action right now? That's just sometimes something that speaks loud to people. And the 5th one is authoritative figure, like authority. So sometimes like having a quote from the mayor, means something to someone, or some members from someone's community that are respected. Really be the tipping point for people to do that call to action that you are aiming for in your infographic. So those are my 5. Not that there's not more than 5, but that's the ones that I always like try to help people with. Yeah.
Sweet deal.
Mm-hmm.
Any others? Yeah, Ashley.
I have a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
I love fun questions.
Can you talk about some of the posters that are behind you? Or like
Oh.
Ooh.
Sure. Okay, hold on. Let me stand up. So I have a sprained ankle. I can like walk, but it's gonna be like a hobbly. Okay. Okay. Come here, computer. Okay. Let's see what you can see. All right. So some of these I've gotten from conferences. Some of them are hand drawn, like the ones on these colored paper that are Sharpie. Let me see if I can just hold on. This is gonna be weird. I hope this doesn't affect the. Okay, it didn't affect the video. Perfect. Oh, can you still see me? Yeah, you can still see me. Okay. Great. I was like, it's gone. It's gone forever. So like, yeah, I've got some drawings up here, but I've also got some printed stuff that I've gotten from conferences. This thing, I can't really tell what you can see and what you can't see. Where's my hand? There's my hand. This is these are some stickers that Chelsea, who's in the residency made. This is also I have some photographs of some of the other residents because some of them are photographers. Ignore this whiteboard is just full of like weird things, sometimes things I want to remember, but some of the things are content from me working at booths that just people made just for fun. Some are my infographics. Oh, am I losing things? Oh, shoot. Let me just pick this up. Okay. So some are my infographics. Like you can see the gender gap one. It's one of my infographics. Some drawings. This is some stuff from the Adobe Max conference. Here's some stuff from the New Economy Coalition. Those posters up there, which I love. Here are some stickers that were made part of a really great initiative that was on Facebook. I have some stuff from Ion Design. I have a great quote from Toni Morrison. Some of my planning blog stuff. Y'all can see.
What's on the canvas?
On the canvas over here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this is a photo by Andre Laro, who's one of the residents, and then this is my calendar, which it's got way too much on it. I don't know if you can see that. I always keep a bunch of infographic books over here. Keep a lot on my desk too. Yeah, plants and things.
Sweet too.
Yeah, I've got a turtle kite. I don't know if you can see that there. And so many books, so many books. Yeah.
Well, this
is my dog.
This is really great. Oh wait. Let's go.
It's a dog. I know. Hi, honey. Yeah. But this is where I work every day. Just
Was there a pet just now?
Yes. There's a dog.
What's his name?
Because he believes in clean energy. Oh yeah. Okay.
Wait, what was his name?
His name is Tesla because he believes in clean energy. Yeah, he's about to turn 9 this year. He'll turn 9 in April.
Ooh,
He's old. He's like his mama. It's cute.
This is so great. Before we let Jessica go, does anyone else have any burning questions or about her work?
I don't.
Yeah, Zakora.
I'm gonna lean in a little bit.
Oh, it froze.
Oh.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if you could kind of talk to your experience, like being a resident with Adobe, like what it's like to work with other creatives and how their process kind of went for you.
Absolutely. Oh, it's been amazing. For anybody who's also interested in applying and you're getting your proposal together, like Adobe like wants you to do something that's not only within your capacity to do, but it also challenges your skills and gives you the opportunity for a lot of growth. For me, like that was motion graphics. That was also sharing my skills out, because sharing what you have to other creatives is also really important. It's like working with Adobe has been amazing because it's opened up a lot of opportunities for me. It's given me more exposure. And they definitely challenge you more than you expect. Like they throw some stuff on your plate when your plate's already full. And you know what mom says, you gotta finish your plate. You gotta eat it all. You gotta eat it all. You cannot leave this table to eat it all. But it has been also outstanding working with the other creative residents, even the ones that are from Germany fly in, and we've all become so close. Oh man, if we had more time, like I wish that we could have done like some collaborative projects together. For the most part, we give each other feedback. Week we have individual reviews, but every single month we have a group review, which is great and lovely. So everybody calls in. That's actually the thing I'm gonna do next. Is call in onto that group review, and we all share our screens and talk about our direction, where we're going, what we like, give each other feedback. We also constantly communicate through WhatsApp because not everybody's from the U.S., so we gotta use the internet, which is really fun. So we get to show each other different things and ask each other questions. We're very, very supportive of each other, so we're constantly sharing different things that each other is doing. Yeah, no, I would say it's just an outstanding experience that anyone should do. Like the challenges are great, but you become beast mode afterwards, and that's that's what we're all hoping to do, right? Is really challenge ourselves for maximum growth. We want to reach our full potential, become giants. I don't know how many people watch Steven Universe, but my goal is to be a giant woman. So yeah.
Sweet deal. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure you have some awesomeness to get into. But thank you so much for taking the time to connect with all of us here and share more about how you're using design for good, for social change, and doing it so creatively.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, you guys. Feel free to message me, email me. I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Sweet.
Bye.
Bye, Jessica.